Governor J.B. Pritzker presents an election year budget filled with tax relief and more spending on programs. And Rod Blagojevich weighs in on a congressional race in our Spotlight Politics. Here with all that and more are Amanda Vinicky and Heather Sharon. So let's first talk about the politics of Governor J.B. Pritzker's State of the State and budget address in this election year. Pritzker's plan includes nearly $1 billion in temporary tax relief. Take a look.
Right now, everyone is feeling the crunch of rising prices for goods and services. The higher cost of even basic necessities is making it harder to make ends meet. Whether it's supply chain interruptions or increasing oil prices, inflation is squeezing Illinois families. Government ought to do more to ease the pain and put more money in the pockets of hardworking Illinoisans.
Amanda, the obvious question first, is this budget purely political?
Well, Brandis, politics are involved in everything, even when it is coupled with deeply held beliefs. So I am not going to right now give any sort of, characterize what is the motivation behind this, but certainly, yes, there is nothing that the governor is going to be doing this year without an eye toward his reelection effort. And certainly this does appear in many ways to be at least tailor-made for that. You could say, however, that there are some fundamental reasons behind these choices. There's the inflation aspect, and also you talk to some members of the governor's team and they point out, hey, if you have one-time costs, that isn't being built into the budget because there's a recognition that while right now revenues are exceeding estimates, that is not going to continue into the future, nor, by the way, will Illinois get that federal stimulus money going forward. So there might be some reasons to do that, but sure, if you're a Republican, if you're a challenger, you're going to raise your eyes and say, hey, wait a second, that's taxpayer money, and by the way, where are some of the changes that could structurally allow this to happen? If you can afford a property tax break for 1 year, why not be able to do that forward? And by the way, politics is behind that. That is why Illinois for so many years has been unable to deal with that. Property taxes really being a very big albatross for many residents.
And Heather, it's not necessarily unprecedented, though, for governors to offer tax breaks or increase spending in an election year.
That's correct. This is the power of incumbency writ large. So I imagine we've already seen a lot of headlines. Pritzker offers $1 billion in tax relief. And that's the sort of headline that candidates any time of the day or year die for. And that's exactly what the governor was going for. Although Amanda's right, it doesn't necessarily make it, sort of untoward. If it's good politics and good policy, that's what we have to sort of now dig into as we get the nitty gritty of the budget proposal, because the devil is always in the detail. But it's not going to hurt J.B. Pritzker going into an election cycle to be able to point to this budget and say, look, I know times are tough. I'm trying to help you out. That's a potentially very powerful message on the campaign trail.
And Amanda, briefly before we move on, what happens next for this budget proposal, in a General Assembly that is majority Democrats? Is this going to be smooth sailing for the governor?
We got that signal from the Democratic leaders of the House and Senate that they're pretty darn pleased. Nonetheless, they left open that there's going to be room for negotiations. And we've heard some feedback, particularly from progressives, that they want more. If you have a surplus, there is most certainly a tendency to want to spend it, especially when legislators themselves are also running for re-election. Nonetheless, they've got a quick timeline because of that primary coming up in the summer. They're hoping to get out of the Capitol here by early April, which means, yes, I think the expectation is, by and large, that Democrats are going to push forward Pritzker's plan.
Now, Jason Van Dyke, switching gears here, was reportedly released to a halfway house in the killing of Laquan McDonald, although the state is saying that he is still in the custody of the Illinois Department of Corrections. Now, Senators Durbin and Duckworth both want the U.S. Attorney General to consider charging the former Chicago police officer federally. So, Heather, first explain, why federal charges would not be double jeopardy, because Van Dyke, we know, was already tried and convicted in state court in McDonald's death. What other federal charges could he face?
Well, he could potentially be charged with violating Laquan McDonald's civil rights or acting in against the Constitution under the color of authority. And that's what the senators want the Department of Justice to look at. Now, back when Jason Van Dyke was convicted back in, 3 years or so ago, everybody sort of breathed a sigh of relief, and the pressure on the federal government to act was reduced because he was going to prison. And I think people are now talking about this more because they're looking at sort of the relatively short time that Jason Van Dyke spent in prison because of a series of rulings the trial court judge made, and saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe we want to take another look out of this. So something very similar happened in Minneapolis in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the officer who murdered George Floyd. He was convicted in state court of murder, but he also faced federal charges. And the 3 other officers involved with George Floyd's death are now on trial facing federal charges. So this wouldn't potentially be unusual, although it would potentially sort of bring up everything that Laquan McDonald has meant to the city and sort of reopen those wounds. And we've, heard from his family that that's not something that they want to be taken lightly. And of course, there's a lot of pressure in an election year to make sure that everything that's being done to address Laquan McDonald's murder is being done.
Amanda, does this kind of pressure from, the chair of the Senate Judiciary, Dick Durbin, or the NAACP for that matter, does that matter to Attorney General Merrick Garland or U.S. Attorney John Lausch here in Chicago?
Again, this is going to get back to what we initially talked about. Of course it does. How can it not? That is immense pressure, and it's coming from some significant places. And already, by the way, while the Biden administration is contending with inflation, contending with a whole lot of other matters where there are fears that Democrats are going to lose control in Washington. And so, yes, this does feed into that. Nonetheless, there is, of course, an expectation, a belief that these decisions are made by prosecutors when you're looking at the judicial branch is far removed from that political pressure as possible. So it is going to be part of the conversation. Believe me, I wish I was privy to what was going on in there. It cannot be ignored, but I think either Garland or Lausch would say that is not the driver behind what we do and why.
Okay, so in the 6th Congressional District, Democratic Congressman Sean Casten is running against his colleague, Congresswoman Marie Newman, who is embroiled in an ongoing ethics investigation. And now in a twist, a political operative has paid former Governor Rod Blagojevich $500 to weigh in on Newman's ongoing ethics investigation. Take a look.
What she's accused of doing, while it might not smell good to some people, really is standard practice in politics and in government, and has been around for a long, long time.
Now that's a Cameo there, the website, for those of you who know it. Amanda, does anybody know who did this? Because $500 for a Cameo is significant.
Yeah, I will say I watched that Cameo went on for quite a bit, and when you evidently pay Rod Blagojevich for a Cameo appearance, you're going to perhaps get more than 30 seconds that some A-list celebrities would give you. This went on for quite some time. It was paid for by a political operative who, through reporting in the Washington Post, I believe, found that it was somebody connected to a political action committee that is working for Casten's election. So not to say that Casten himself was involved or this was an approved expense of his campaign, but a PAC that is working for him. So it may be one that sort of backfires because it could be seen as a distraction, giving money to Blagojevich, when really the heart of this ethics scandal that is hounding Marie Newman is somewhat serious in nature, in regarding that she is believed to have tried to fend off having another challenge by putting somebody on the payroll, ultimately, by the way, a payroll on her campaign, now working to get her reelected against Casten.
No, Heather, Casten has nearly $1.6 million on hand. Newman has about a third of that at $573,000. What will this race come down to? Is it going to be about fundraising, the ethics issue for her?
Well, it's interesting because this is an intra-party sort of race where the candidates agree on most of the issues. Kasten and Newman are progressive members of the House. Now, while Newman might be a little bit more progressive than Kasten on some issue, Kasten has been really outspoken on environmental issues and the need for energy sustainability. So there's not a whole lot of room policy-wise for them to differentiate themselves, which is why this sort of ethics cloud can really come into play. And it always helps to have plenty of money at your disposal. You can buy television ads and you can get out the vote and you can use social media. So, you know, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, because of course, Marie Newman was heralded as a giant slayer because she finally defeated Dan Lipinski, who had been in the 3rd district seat for so many years.
And of course, it doesn't hurt that there is a significant difference in the war chest as well there. We'll have to leave it there. Heather Sharon, Amanda Vinicky, thanks so much.